Emma Parker knew something was wrong the moment the elevator doors failed to open. The small digital screen above the buttons flickered once, showed nothing, then went dark. She pressed the lobby button again. Nothing happened. No soft chime. No movement. She stared at her reflection in the metal doors, hair slightly messy from hours at her desk, eyes tired from reading the same numbers over and over. Midnight glowed on her phone. Perfect, she whispered. The building had emptied hours ago. She had seen the last coworkers leave, heard the cleaners roll their carts down the hallway, watched the lights shut off floor by floor. She had told herself she would pack up in 5 minutes. 5 minutes had turned into 40. Now she was alone. Emma tried the emergency button inside the elevator. A short buzz answered, then silence. No voice came through. Her chest tightened. She stepped back into the office area. The wide floor looked different at night. Rows of desks stood like shadows. Computer screens were dark. The usual daytime noise, phones, printers, chatter, was gone. Only the hum of distant air vents filled the space. Outside the tall windows, the city glittered. Cars moved far below like lines of light. Toronto never really slept, but the office above it felt sealed off from everything. Emma walked toward the main exit doors. Locked. She tested another set. Also locked. She pulled out her phone and called building security. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, this is Emma Parker on the 22nd floor," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think I'm locked inside. Please call me back." She hung up and exhaled slowly. It was fine. Someone would notice. Eventually. She told herself that twice. Then the lights at the far end of the floor switched on. Emma froze. They were supposed to be off. She turned slowly. Through the glass walls of the large conference area, bright overhead lights glowed. Shapes moved behind them. Footsteps followed, soft, but clear. More than one. Her heart jumped. She took a step back, gripping her phone in both hands. Her mind raced through every late-night news story she had ever heard. Empty building. After midnight. No exits. 5 figures emerged from behind the glass doors. 5 people. They stopped when they saw her. For a long second, no one moved. The group looked just as startled as she felt. One of them, a tall man in a dark coat, lifted his hand slightly, as if to show he meant no harm. "Hey," he said. "Didn't expect anyone else up here." His voice wasn't sharp or rough. It was calm. Almost friendly. Emma swallowed. I got stuck." The words came out before she had time to think. The man nodded. "Yeah. Us too, I think." The others stepped closer, forming a loose line behind him. Emma studied them quickly. A woman with glasses and a neat blazer. A blonde guy holding a paper cup of coffee like it was life support. Another man with a shoulder bag. A woman scrolling on her phone but watching everything around her. They didn't look dangerous. They looked tired. Relieved, even, to see someone else. "I'm Emma," she said. The tall man smiled a little. "Daniel." He glanced back at the group. Late meetings. Fire alarm earlier. Elevators stopped working. The woman with glasses sighed. Whole building went into lockdown mode, I guess. Emma felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. So, not ghosts. The blonde guy let out a tired laugh. Disappointing, right? A small smile tugged at Emma's lips. She hadn't realized how badly she needed to laugh. Daniel shifted his weight, eyes moving toward the locked doors behind her. "You tried calling security?" "Yeah." No answer. "Same." For a moment they just stood there, 6 strangers in a silent office tower, the city glowing beneath them. Emma noticed Daniel watching her, not in a way that made her uneasy, but thoughtful, like he was trying to read her story in her face. She looked away first. "Guess we wait," she said. Daniel nodded. "Looks like it." The lights hummed overhead. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere far below. And though she was still trapped in the building, Emma suddenly felt something shift. She wasn't alone anymore. And that changed everything. Emma froze behind her cubicle for a moment, unsure if she should stay hidden or step forward. The 5 strangers weren't moving toward her aggressively, but there was something about their sudden appearance that made her pulse quicken. Her phone pressed tightly in her hand felt like a fragile shield against the unknown. Finally, she drew in a shaky breath and stepped out. "Hi," she said, voice small but clear. "I got stuck too." The tall man in the dark coat smiled gently. "I'm Daniel," he said. "We didn't expect anyone else here." He gestured to the others behind him. "This is Maya, Lucas, Andre, and Sophie. Looks like late meetings trapped us all." Emma nodded, relief mingling with curiosity. She studied them quickly. Maya's glasses reflected the dim emergency lights, and she seemed calm, almost amused. Lucas leaned against a desk, hoodie slightly wrinkled, gripping a cup of coffee like it was his lifeline. Andre's bag hung casually across his shoulder, but his eyes moved constantly, alert. Sophie's fingers moved rapidly across her phone screen, yet her gaze flicked up to observe the room, sharp and calculating. "I'm Emma," she said, feeling a flicker of warmth at the sight of human faces in the quiet office. "Welcome to the Midnight Club," Lucas said, grinning despite the exhaustion in his voice. Daniel stepped a little closer. "We were trying to figure out if calling security would help." His tone was calm, but there was a trace of frustration. He checked his phone again. No signal. "Great timing, huh?" Emma's shoulders sagged, but the group's calm energy rubbed off on her. She realized she wasn't panicking anymore. Just tired. Tired, yes, but safe. They moved toward the large conference area. Chairs were pushed together, forming a makeshift circle. Emma found herself sitting across from Daniel, and their knees almost brushed under the table. She felt a subtle flutter she hadn't felt in months. "So, how did you all end up here?" she asked, trying to start small talk, even though the situation was strange. Each person shared their story quickly, almost racing to fill the silence. Maya had been finishing a marketing pitch. Lucas was dealing with an IT emergency. Andre had a design deadline that stretched into the night. Sophie had been reviewing legal documents. Emma spoke softly about herself, about the long hours, the promotion she was chasing, the family pressures she carried. Daniel listened without interrupting, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low but steady. "I stayed late too," he admitted. "I was supposed to leave this firm months ago, but something made me stay." "Not sure why." Emma tilted her head, curious. "And now?" Daniel shrugged slightly, but his eyes lingered on her face. "Now, I'm glad I stayed." Her heart skipped a beat. She realized the connection wasn't just about being trapped. There was something unspoken, something gentle and real passing between them. The conversation moved on, stories overlapping, laughter breaking through. The fear of being alone in the office faded. Emma noticed subtle details: Daniel's easy smile, Lucas's quiet humor, Maya's sharp wit, Sophie's attentive nature, Andre's steady presence. Each of them was exhausted, yet there was a shared sense of camaraderie, a bond formed in the middle of the night. Then a loud thump echoed from below. Everyone jumped. Lucas stood, tension rising. That didn't sound normal. The lights flickered briefly, and Emma gripped the edge of her chair. Daniel leaned closer, a protective gesture that made her chest tighten. "Stay near me," he said quietly. She did, without thinking. The group decided to check the stairwell while maintaining the circle, cautious but not afraid. Emma's heart still raced, but not with fear, excitement, curiosity, and an unspoken closeness with Daniel made her feel alive. Even amidst the uncertainty, laughter returned. They shared memories of late nights, stressful bosses, and the little victories that kept them going. Emma felt herself opening up in a way she hadn't in months, trusting strangers in a space that should have felt cold. Daniel offered his jacket when she shivered. She hesitated but accepted it. The fabric was warm, carrying a faint, comforting scent. For a moment, it was more than a jacket, it was a small reassurance, a sign that someone cared. Hours of waiting passed quickly. The group exchanged stories, jokes, and subtle glances. Emma noticed how Daniel's eyes found hers often, quietly curious, unhurried, warm. The office no longer felt empty. It felt alive. Tense, yes, but alive with possibility. Something had shifted in the quiet hours of the night. Emma couldn't say if it was the thrill of being trapped, the shared vulnerability, or the spark of attraction that lingered every time Daniel smiled. And just as her mind began to settle, a louder thump echoed, closer this time. All 5 strangers froze, eyes widening, and Emma felt her heart leap. The night wasn't over. Not yet. Emma and the group settled into the conference room chairs, forming a loose circle. The emergency lights cast long shadows, turning the office into a quiet, almost intimate space. It was strange how the atmosphere shifted from eerie to oddly comforting, as if the building itself paused to let them connect. Daniel sat across from her, his jacket draped over the back of the chair beside him. Emma felt a pull toward him she couldn't explain. Something about his calm presence made her chest tighten and her thoughts slow. She hugged her cardigan tighter, trying to focus on the group instead of the fluttering sensation in her stomach. "So, why do you all work so late?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. Maya, the woman with glasses, spoke first. "Deadlines. Always deadlines. But some nights, it's worth it to see the project come together." Lucas leaned back in his chair, coffee in hand. "IT emergencies never sleep. I get paged at the weirdest hours. Tonight was normal chaos." He smirked, and the group chuckled. Andre, quiet but thoughtful, added, "Freelance life. You choose your hours, but somehow the work finds you anyway." Sophie, still scrolling her phone, looked up and said, "Law never sleeps either. Documents, contracts, it piles up. Being stuck here feels different, though. Less lonely." Emma nodded slowly. "I guess for me, it's family. My dad got sick, and I had to move back home for a while. Now I'm trying to rebuild my career, and staying late sometimes feels like the only way forward." Daniel's eyes softened as he listened. "That's a lot to carry." She felt a sudden surge of gratitude for his quiet understanding. Most people just nodded politely, but Daniel's gaze made her feel seen. "Honestly," Daniel continued, "I was supposed to leave this firm months ago. I stayed because I wasn't ready for what came next. Maybe I was afraid." Emma tilted her head, curious. "Afraid of what?" "Life after certainty," he said with a small shrug, eyes not leaving hers. "Not knowing the path, even when you want to." A quiet smile formed on Emma's lips. "I get that." For a while, they didn't speak much. The group shared small laughs about mundane things, office coffee that never tasted right, chairs that squeaked, elevators that always seemed to break. Emma found herself noticing little details, the way Daniel's hair caught the dim light, the slight curve of his smile, the warmth in his voice. A sudden thump echoed from the floor below. Everyone jumped, tension snapping back into the room. Lucas stood immediately. "What was that?" The lights flickered for a moment, and Emma gripped the edge of her chair. Her heart thudded fast, but it wasn't fear. It was awareness. Daniel leaned closer, a protective instinct she felt in her bones. "Stay near me," he said quietly. She did, without thinking. The simple act of being close brought a strange sense of safety. The group debated whether to check the stairwell. Lucas and Andre volunteered to look while the others stayed behind. Emma's eyes never left Daniel, who gave her a small reassuring nod. As they waited, conversations resumed in softer tones. Stories overlapped, voices blending into a comforting rhythm. Emma found herself opening up more than she had intended, talking about fears, dreams, and little regrets that haunted her. Daniel listened intently, occasionally offering a thought or a quiet observation. His presence was steady, grounding. When Emma shivered, Daniel offered his jacket. She hesitated for a moment but accepted. The fabric smelled faintly of winter air and soap. A small, simple gesture, yet it carried warmth that seemed bigger than the room itself. Hours passed quickly. The group's tension slowly faded into companionship. They joked, teased lightly, and shared anecdotes from past late-night office experiences. Emma laughed more than she had in weeks, her voice mixing with the others in the dim room. Daniel's gaze lingered on her occasionally, quiet but deliberate. There was a softness there, an unspoken connection that made her chest flutter every time their eyes met. She realized she wasn't just enjoying the conversation, she was drawn to him. Drawn to the kindness and attention he offered without expectation. The sound of a maintenance door slamming somewhere below broke the calm. Emma's heart jumped again, but the group's response was more laughter than panic. Lucas muttered about terrible timing, and Daniel's hand brushed lightly against hers, almost by accident, but not quite. Even trapped in the office, Emma felt alive. She realized that fear had shifted to excitement not only for the unexpected bond forming between her and Daniel but also for the shared vulnerability of strangers who, by chance, had become companions for the night. The quiet hum of the lights, the faint chatter, the distant city below, it all felt suspended in time. Emma knew the night wasn't over, but the hours she spent there already left a mark. Something gentle, something tender, had begun. And she couldn't wait to see what would happen next. The sound from the stairwell turned out to be nothing more than a maintenance door slamming. Relief washed over the group, but the energy in the office remained charged, a strange mix of exhaustion and connection. Emma exhaled slowly, letting the tension slip from her shoulders. The elevator still wouldn't work, but somehow, that didn't feel so important anymore. The five strangers and Emma settled back near the conference room windows, the city lights stretching out beneath them like a sea of stars. Laughter began to ripple through the group as they shared stories about their late-night office struggles. Lucas joked about the time he got stuck in a supply closet overnight, and Maya laughed so hard she nearly tipped her chair. Andre and Sophie exchanged playful arguments about whose job was more stressful, and Daniel listened quietly, occasionally glancing at Emma with a small, private smile that made her heart flutter. Emma realized she hadn't felt this alive in a long time. The office that had seemed so cold, so lonely, now felt warm. Safe. Full of human connection. She noticed little details, the way Daniel's eyes softened when he smiled, how Lucas laughed openly despite exhaustion, how Maya's sharp humor cut through tension like sunlight, how Andre's quiet steadiness grounded the room, and how Sophie's keen observations made her feel seen. Daniel leaned against the window frame beside Emma. "Kind of strange, isn't it?" he asked, voice low. "I came in stressed out, tired, worried about everything." Emma looked at him. "And now?" He smiled, a hint of mischief in his calm expression. "Now. I'm glad I got stuck." She couldn't help but smile back. The way he said it, soft, honest, made her feel like she wasn't the only one who had needed this night more than she realized. The group chatted a little more while waiting for help. Finally, Sophie's phone lit up. Security. Relief swept over everyone. The tension that had built up through the night began to fade, replaced by excitement and nervous energy. They gathered their things, still sharing jokes, teasing each other about forming a midnight survivors club. Emma laughed at the thought, realizing she didn't want the night to end. When the security team arrived, they guided the group toward the working elevators. Emma felt a pang of disappointment. She wasn't ready to leave the strange, beautiful intimacy of the night behind. As they reached the lobby, everyone exchanged numbers, made small promises to keep in touch, and said heartfelt goodbyes. Daniel lingered near the doors. He shifted his weight nervously, hands tucked into his coat pockets. "So, coffee?" he asked. His tone was casual, but Emma noticed the slight tremor, the hopeful edge. "Not tonight, unless you want to wait for sunrise in the lobby, but sometime." Emma's heart skipped. She felt a warmth bloom in her chest, a gentle rush of anticipation she hadn't expected. "I'd like that," she said softly, her smile genuine. The sound of the elevator doors opening broke the moment, but Emma hardly noticed. She took a last glance back at the quiet office floor, the place that had felt like a trap just hours ago. She had entered tired, anxious, unsure of her path. She was leaving with a borrowed jacket, a few new friends, and something far more precious, a spark of connection, a flutter in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. As she and Daniel stepped into the elevator together, the city lights reflected off the glass doors, painting the interior with faint golden streaks. For a moment, the world felt infinite and full of possibility. Their hands brushed lightly, accidental, yet meaningful. Emma felt the simple thrill of being near someone who understood her, who had shared a strange, intense night, and who might just become something more. The elevator moved downward slowly, each floor passing in a quiet rhythm. Emma leaned slightly toward Daniel, aware of the subtle energy between them. He caught her glance and gave a small, reassuring smile. No words were needed, the unspoken understanding was enough. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars and lights moving in endless patterns. Emma and Daniel stepped out together, walking through the quiet streets toward the promise of a new day. The night had trapped them, but it had also given them something unexpected: connection, laughter, vulnerability, and the first gentle steps toward romance. Emma realized that sometimes, being stuck was exactly what life needed to nudge her towards something beautiful. The strangers who had walked in had become companions, confidants, and maybe even something more. And in the soft glow of early morning, she felt a strange certainty: that night wouldn't be forgotten, that it had changed her in ways she hadn't yet fully understood, and that the story between her and Daniel was just beginning. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt the rush of hope, the sweetness of possibility, and the quiet thrill of knowing that sometimes, the universe had its own way of guiding people to the right place, at the right time.